This is the second video project for East Asia. This region includes China, Japan, South Korea, North Korea, and Taiwan. The first country we'll be talking about is China. So one of the biggest issues China is dealing with is a COVID lockdown restriction that's leading to indirect killings and social unrest. This means that there's heavy restrictions being placed on citizens by the Chinese government. The Guangzhou protests are coming in response. They're destroying COVID testing centers and flipping police cars. The government is loosening the rules about mass testing and quarantine for overseas arrivals, but not for the zero COVID policy implemented on citizens. Guangzhou hotspot for COVID cases. And like I said, there is indirect killings that are happening because of the zero COVID policy. This includes a 4-month-old that died after it took 12 hours for her to get care. A woman who miscarried after no response was given after she asked for an ambulance, and many have just died within the COVID quarantine spaces. So the geography concepts that are involved, we have population, geopolitics, and economic and social development. The next country I'm talking about is Taiwan. Problems in Taiwan are the China and Taiwan border strait tensions. China has been threatening Taiwan with force to obtain Taiwan's territory. Tensions have risen because of the visit of Nancy Pelosi in Taiwan, and because China viewed this visit as an instigated threat from the United States. The Taiwan president has spoken, saying she is willing to work with China to find ways to maintain peace across the strait. And because of this, Taiwan has strengthened their national defense awareness. These concepts of geography are geopolitics, cultural coherence, and diversity. Next up, we have Japan. The government in Japan is lifting COVID restrictions, which will increase tourism and hopefully stimulate the economy. Japan is celebrating 50 years of diplomatic relations. Japan's military has seized power and is regulating protest coverages. Organizations in Japan are fighting to prevent deforestation. New laws are being created to check nuclear power plants once a decade to protect Japan. National leaders are discussing restrictions on private air conditioning units. And China and Japan tensions are escalating. As a result, Japan has increased their defense budget as they cope with these tensions. And lastly, we have inflation, and that's continuing to rise. Geography concepts involved are geopolitics, economic and social development, sustainability, and population.
Okay, now on to North Korea. North Korea and South Korea recently held a conference where they talked about potentially reuniting families that had been separated from the Korean War. Kim Jong-un has ruled out denuclearization during a press conference, stating that, quote, there will no longer be any bargaining, end quote. A North Korean representative was invited to the Queen of England's funeral. Tensions have risen between North Korea and Russia as the war rages on. North Korea has fired a series of ballistic missiles over Japan and Taiwan, wanting to send a clear message that North Korean leaders are serious about their nuclear weapons. A mass COVID-19 vaccination campaign is ordered to help reduce rising cases in the country. North Korea has made further attempts to intimidate neighboring countries. Numerous threats were made towards the U.S. as joint drills began. Kim Jong-un brings his daughter to a missile launching, which was the first public appearance of one of his children. These current events include geopolitics, economic development, and human relations. In South Korea, they have been recently collaborating with the U.S. military. North Korea has not liked this and has responded to this collaboration by launching several missiles into South Korea. One of these missiles has landed across the Northern Limit Line, or the NLL, and Seoul has called it, quote, unacceptable breach of its territory, end quote. In response, South Korea has fired some air-to-ground missiles to a similar distance past the NLL off the north coast. South Korea has also dealt with the major loss that happened over the last weekend of October. On Halloween night, an alleyway in Itaewon became overrun with people, leading to at least 150 deaths and others injured. Many have blamed the police force, and measures are being discussed to prevent any similar issues in the future. These current events include geopolitics and overpopulation. This slide will be an overview of all the geographic principles that we saw in the past few slides about current events. So in China, we talked about population, geopolitics, economic and social development. In Japan, we talked about geopolitics, economic and social development, sustainability, and population. In South Korea, we talked about geopolitics and population. North Korea, we talked about geopolitics, economic development, and human relation. In Taiwan, we talked about geopolitics, cultural coherence, and diversity. The common themes between all of these are that there are lots of tensions between countries in this region, and the countries start to drop the quarantine of tourists. How is our region of East Asia portrayed in the media? We have seen that the region of East Asia is positively portrayed for the most part in the media as a rapidly growing culture, influencing many other parts of the world with its music, entertainment, and food. What evidence have we found that supports our analysis of how the region is portrayed in the media? We have found that East Asia is known for its growing media in entertainment and music. Several Asian shows on Netflix have become popular all over the world. Squid Games is an example of this, and is one of the most popular shows on Netflix. Another example is BTS, a famous Korean singing group. And for food, we have boba drinks, which is one of the most popular food items around the world.
Okay, let's sum up the current events that we've covered so far and then go into the biases. In China, there have been a lot of events relating to COVID-19. Heavy restrictions have been placed, and as a result, there has been a lot of civil unrest and indirect killings. Taiwan has been in conflict with China as China threatens to obtain territory by force. Japan has lifted COVID-19 restrictions, celebrated 50 years of diplomatic relations, and increased efforts in deforestation, coverage of protests, and checking nuclear power plants. North Korea has been working with South Korea in uniting families, and tensions between North Korea and neighboring countries have continued to grow. And South Korea has been working with the U.S. military against North Korea. We noted that many of these articles had strong opinions that were aligned with American beliefs. For example, many articles would tear down North Korean ideals that are contrary to that of the United States. Similar viewpoints were found with events surrounding China, as the news outlets seem to have harsh opinions against different countries that frequently oppose American ideals. It was easy to find these biases because of the lack of counter-arguments, such as the lack of reasoning that North Korea or China has for the actions they've been taking. So, what do the authors want their readers to believe about the region? It seems that authors want to both inspire their audience to take action against what is happening in many parts of this country. They want their readers to understand the dangers that are lurking just a continent away. The main focus of the articles has been on the negative parts of the region, such as North Korea's missiles and China's claim to Taiwan. There hasn't been a lot of happy and positive news because the focus seems to be about detrimental negotiations and harsh legislators. These beliefs have been found all over the region and are displaying a darkness that is overtaking much of Eastern Asia. Now, we were able to condense all this information we've learned about current events in East Asia into three main geographical theories and concepts. One, geopolitics. Each country in the region is dealing with tensions from others. The largest issue is North Korea, as they are contending with almost the entire rest of the region, as well as Russia. Taiwan has become an increasing concern between China and the United States. Two, social development, particularly in Japan. It is somewhat concerning due to the government increasing their control over the people's lives, such as with the air conditioning units of privately owned homes. And three, economics. The country's economies are decently wealthy and innovative, but this is increasing weapons for war, creating overpopulated areas, and cost increase based on inflation. The root causes of these events appear to be cultural nationalism and cultural imperialism. Many people in East Asia take pride in their country, so they wish to protect it against unwanted notions and practices. The potentially most extreme case would be North Korea. Taiwan is also facing cultural imperialism as China may wish to take over control of the country. Finally, there are a few things that people need to understand. Buddhism is the main religion of China. This religion greatly prioritizes obedience to leaders. This explains why its people have taken a long time to fight against this type of government. The entire region also has a lot of national pride. This leads to a lot of tension between nations. Thanks for watching. We hope you learned a lot about what is going on in Eastern Asia region.